Today, we're going to dive into something really profound, a beautiful topic that gets right to the heart of things. What is our reality, and how do our minds connect with the universe itself? We're going to explore this incredible idea that everything you experience, it isn't really out there. It's actually all happening right inside of you. So let's get into it.
So let me start by asking you a really simple question. How do you see this flower? Now, your first thought is probably, well, with my eyes, obviously. So let me start by asking you a really simple question. How do you see this flower? So let me start by asking you a really simple question. How do you see this flower?
And here's the core idea from our source material, and it's a big one. You never actually see the external flower itself. What really happens is that light from the flower travels to your eyes, zips through your optic nerves, and creates a perfect little mental picture inside your mind. You are seeing the image of the flower, not the flower. Think about that. You never directly touch or hear or see anything in the physical world. Your entire experience of reality, it's a projection created right inside your own consciousness. Okay, so if our reality is really an internal experience, then how does our mind actually interact with the world? Well, the source explains that there are two fundamental ways, two flows of consciousness that our mind uses to engage with everything. Let's break those down. Think of your consciousness like a two-way street. The first direction is what we just talked about with the flower. That's extro-internal. It's an outside-in process, right? Information from an external object flows in and creates an internal image. But the second flow, intro-external, is the complete reverse. It's an inside-out process, where a thought you create inside your mind gets projected outward into the world. And this, my friends, is where things get really interesting. So let's look at that inside-out projection. With a mind that's strong enough, you could literally create the thought of, say, an elephant. And you could project that thought with so much force that not only you, but other people around you could actually see it. The source calls this a positive hallucination. Not positive as in good, but positive as in you're adding a perception to reality that isn't physically there. And you guessed it, the opposite is also true. Imagine there really is an elephant in the room. A really powerful mind could basically just withdraw the perception of it. It could stop the light waves from forming that image in your mind, making it seem like it vanished. For you, for everyone, there's no elephant, even though it's physically standing right there. That's a negative hallucination. You're subtracting a perception from reality. The main takeaway here is just, wow, our minds have this incredible power to both perceive and literally shape the reality we experience. Okay, so we've been talking about the human mind, which has this clear separation between an internal world and an external world. But what if? What if there was a consciousness so vast, so all-encompassing, that there was no external at all? This brings us to what the source calls Parama Purusha, the supreme universal consciousness. And this slide just lays out the difference perfectly. For you and me, there's a divide, right? There's the world out there, and then there are our thoughts in here. But for this universal consciousness, Parama Purusha, there is no out there. The entire universe, every single star, every ocean, every one of our thoughts, it all exists inside this one single mind. Let me give you an analogy. You need your physical eyes to go and see the Pacific Ocean. But if you close your eyes and create an ocean in your imagination, you don't need eyes to see it, do you? You perceive it mentally. Well, for Parama Purusha, the entire cosmos is like that. The Pacific Ocean isn't something he looks at, it's a thought form, created and perceived entirely within his own mind. For this consciousness, creation and perception are the exact same thing. Now, you'd think a being that contains the entire universe within itself would have to be absolutely 100% perfect. No flaws, no limitations. But the Source introduces this beautiful, mind-bending paradox. This absolute consciousness actually has two so-called imperfections. And honestly, this is one of my favorite parts of this whole teaching.
Just two. What on earth could they be? How can an absolute, all-encompassing being be imperfect in any way? Okay, here's the first imperfection. He cannot create another, separate version of himself. And why not? Because anything that comes into truly close contact with him, anything that loves him, it just becomes one with him. It's like a piece of iron touching a giant, powerful magnet. The very second they touch, they stop being two separate things. The iron becomes the magnet. It's absorbed. So there can only ever be one.
The second imperfection is, I think, even more beautiful. He cannot hate anyone. Think about it. If you create a character in a story in your own mind, even a villain, can you truly hate that character? Not really, because you know, deep down, they're just a part of your own consciousness. Well, since all of us are creations within the mind of Parama Purusha, he can't hate any part of himself. It's impossible. The Source even gives this wonderfully charming and logical comeback. If Parama Purusha ever got angry and said, "Get out of my mind," you could simply reply with this question. If he is literally everywhere, filling all of existence, where would you even go? There is no outside to be thrown into. It's a loving, logical impossibility. So, this leads us to the biggest question of all. If this universal consciousness exists, and we exist inside it, how do we connect? How do we become like that piece of iron meeting the magnet and find that ultimate union? The Source looks at a few ways, but it shows us one path that rises above all the others. So, what about the path of intellect? Can we think our way to this ultimate reality? According to the Source, that's not quite going to cut it. And the reason is that the intellectual path can so easily get tangled up with the ego. An intellectual might become proud of their knowledge. They might start seeking name and fame in the external world. And that focus on external validation, on what other people think, pulls them further and further away from the internal union they're looking for. Okay, so if thinking isn't the way, what about doing? Can our great actions, our great deeds, bring us into contact with the absolute? The path of action is also limited. See, every action we take happens within the boundaries of time and space and our own individual self. But Paramapurusha is infinite. He exists beyond all of those things. So you can't really use the limited tools of this relative world to reach something that is absolute and unlimited. So what's left? Well, the Source says the most intelligent path is the path of the devotee. And the logic here is it's breathtaking. It goes like this. Paramapurusha is wantless, right? He has everything because everything is inside his mind. But his devotees love him so much, their devotion is so powerful, that their love has effectively stolen his mind away from him. So now, the wantless being has one single want. He's missing a mind. And so the intelligent devotee sees this and says, "Lord, you have a want. Here, take my mind. Let me fill that empty space for you and make you complete again." It is this profound, total surrender that comes from a place of pure love. And that really leaves us with a final, powerful thought to reflect on. In our world, we tend to praise intellect and action above almost everything else. But what if the ultimate connection to the universe? What if the most intelligent, the most direct path of all bypasses both of them? What if it's simply a path of profound, all-consuming, intelligent love? If this exploration resonated with you, please do like and subscribe to the channel. We're always diving deep into big ideas like this. Thank you so much for joining us. Namaskar.